this is the moment. This is the moment of what? That's a really interesting question. What is this the moment of? Do you realize that in this very moment, all things are possible? In this very moment, all things that could ever be thought are possible. There is no limitation in this moment. The only time a limitation comes into this moment is when we reach back and we drag all of that stuff from our past into this current moment, fill our mind with what we can't do, what we shouldn't do, what we were told not to do, what won't feel good, what will feel good. And when we drag all of that into this moment, we start living Groundhog Day. And we go into a repetitive cycle where our lives are constantly just repeating and repeating the same old story. I reflect back onto watching as a child the TV series All in the Family. You know, one of the most classic revolutionary series ever put on, and there were habits. Archie had habits. He would come in, he would say, he'd put his hat on the coat rack, put his coat up there, and he would say, "Edith, I'm home." And he would go to his chair, and he would be waiting. And if she didn't come out fast enough, he says, "Where's my beer?" And the TV would go on. And you see, that was the pattern. So every day in Archie's world was a repeat of the day before. Have you ever been there? Did you ever watch your parents do that? Better yet, have you watched yourself do that? It's everywhere present, isn't it? We've been brainwashed into believing that a habit is something that's great. What if we have a habit that says, I will create a new and different and better day than any day before? So that every day we wake up, we start a process of recreating a life that is beyond. There's a point I want to make, is that I really got clear on an aspect in talking with John on the side when he was here the other night. We were having a conversation. And we were having a conversation, we were talking about the similarities of what he saw as he went around the world teaching, and the similarities of what I see as I teach in a local area to a community. And the same thing happens. It's the same dynamic over and over and over again. He says, everyone I talk to knows what I'm going to say. Everybody I talk to has an understanding of the principles. He says, but what we have is we have a lot of people who do not do. We have a people who are not doers. They're talkers. You following where I'm going? And here's the thing that really became clear for me, because I have a pattern that I've been teaching. And my pattern is that the first thing we must do to create, we must imagine. Right? It is the imagination. It's the gift that sets us apart from all other this animal species. Without imagination, we will be repetitive. We will be instinctual. We will be constantly doing the same thing over and over. But we have this imagination, and this imagination goes crazy and creates this big, huge, magnificent picture, right? And from that picture, we then build what? A desire. We desire to have what we've imagined. Now, if we've desired it and we've imagined it, why is it that we can't bring it forth into our lives? What's the difference that stops there from making the decision? And remember, when we make the decision is that point of consciousness where there is no turning around. You cannot turn back. You leave no other option possible. This is the missing ingredient that I haven't talked about recently. John highlighted it so clearly when he said it's because it was not our value. Do you see, we can imagine things that are magnificent in all aspects of life, but if it's not unique to the values that we have, it's just fluff imagination, because we can't embrace something unless we value it. We're not going to make a decision towards something unless that the idea that we're deciding toward has a value to us. Does that make sense? Because what really became clear for me is that I have talked, I'll use the gym as an example. That's the best example I can use. I've been in the gym 40-some years. I understand the gym world. I watch the gym world. It floods every January. I mean, there are more people in there and there's more jiggling going on in that gym than you can shake a stick at. You don't dare go up to the ellipticals. You go up to the ellipticals, the floor is vibrating like this. Because people are enthused, they're excited, and they're committed. They're committed in that moment. And what happens come the end of February? The gym is empty. It's not because the people aren't capable, but the health that they were seeking was not of value to them. Because if it was of value to them, they would have found it. And that's where the DeMartini process, or what John talked about, was so critical. You can shift your value, but you've got to find the benefit of it. And the key thing is, this is what I've come to understand as I do anything in my life, as you heard me say earlier, what is my purpose? My purpose is to teach and support personal transformation by teaching positive, practical tools that empower people to create their purpose-filled life. That's my purpose. So how do I link going to the gym? How do I link eating? How do I link other things outside of being up here talking or teaching classes to that goal? Well, I realized early on that if I'm not a healthy specimen, if I'm not walking the talk, if I'm not demonstrating what I'm teaching, I'm of no value. If my body is not able to move and groove and glide and do all of that, how can I be there to be an example to teach the principles of self-empowerment? So what I've done is I've linked activities that I may not like to do to what's going to achieve my highest value and my highest goal that I've set for myself. And once I've got that value linked, then when I go to the gym for me is a blast. Being a vegan is a blast for me. It's not painful. I'm not giving up anything because in my mind, I have convinced myself that what I am doing is serving my highest vision. The other thing that's important to me that you probably don't know is I like order, and I like to create a sacred space. And for me, my home is that sacred space, okay? When I go to my home, there is nothing there that should be stressful. That's my sanctuary. That's where I learn. That's where I eat. That's where I commune with my wife. That's where I commune with my sons. That's where we bring people in and we commune as a community. That's where I meditate. That's where I pray. That's where I play with my dog. That's where my bird sings when I pray. That's where all of that happens. So that place is sacred to me. Now, John would say, well, Lee, you got to delegate all the stuff. But see, there's something there that I value differently than John. I valued yesterday in my garage working with Steve hanging a couple cupboards. I valued that because I was creating order. You see, and that was for me a spiritual practice. I linked it into creating my home to where my sanctuary is. You following me? So you are unique in everything you do. You're unique from anyone else in the world. You can't model anyone else unless you're modeling towards something that you desire that's part of your value system. But most of the time, we've not embodied that. And so if you followed my creative process, and it's not my creative process, it's the way I express it, it's a creative process that's always existed, okay? You imagine, you create a desire, you make a decision, and you align all of your thoughts, words, actions, and feelings to that. Okay? What does that mean? There's a couple things I really want to drive home today on that. We must turn away from everything and anything and anyone who is taking us away from that vision. We turn away from it because to go toward that which is not what we desire takes us away from the dream. And it's not that we judge the event, say it's good or bad, but we have one mindset, and that mindset is to go toward where we want to go toward the light that we are seeking. And when we're going toward that light, we do not want anything to block the light. And so when people enter into our worlds or situations come into our worlds and it causes the light to dim by our feelings and that type of thing going down, we must push that aside and say, thank you, but no thank you, this is where I'm headed. And we must be selfish enough to love ourselves enough, to take and create our God self enough to be the light in the world. Otherwise, we're not living up to our magnificence, which means we cannot possibly love ourselves, which means we will live in a state of depression. And that's what's happening today is people are treating with meds and drugs because they have expectations are up here and their reality is here and they cannot see the end because they're allowing everything around them to get in the way of them moving toward their dream. And if they break it down and chunk it up, one step at a time toward that direction, toward that dream, it becomes manageable because it's not manageable here, but it is manageable to here, and it's manageable to here. But you've got to be always going in the direction of this big one. Is that making sense? Now, that's a mouthful, would you agree? And that is simple to understand, but it's not easy to do. That's where it takes discipline. That's where it takes commitment. That's where it takes decision. Here's the other one that really touched me the other night. This was about 2:30 in the morning on Thursday. I woke up and this thought came to me. Why is it that sometimes when I'm praying, when I'm trying to create something in my life, I don't feel it? Why is it I haven't got the feeling behind it? Because you can't. Because I see it, I can picture it, I can build all sorts of things around it, I can verbalize it, I can act upon it, but there's nothing in the heart. And what came to me, it's because I don't value it. I don't value it. So when John was talking on Friday and he talked about wealth and well-being, I don't have a high value on wealth, on financial wealth. And I had to really embrace the idea that that hasn't been a value for me. Now, your idea and my idea of wealth are very different. I believe to be a millionaire is normal. Are you hearing that? I'm saying what I'm looking at is I want to be 10 to 20 millionaire. Are you following it? I want to be what John talked about of being financially free. And financially free, he said the minimum to be financially free, you have to have $10 million so you can live off the passive income. So if you take $10 million and you're living off 5% of that, what are we talking about? You're talking about an annual revenue of $500,000. That's a pretty good life. You want to chunk it down and say, okay, if I've got $5 million, then I can live on 5% of that. That's $250,000 a year. Take away taxes from that, you're living on $150,000, or you're living on about roughly $12,000 a month. That's a good life. Why would you settle for a life anything less than that? Because some of you are judging right now that I'm saying such big numbers, and it's because you can't even get your eyes around or ears or your ideas around the idea of living at $250,000 a year. And if you're not able to get it around it, then you're not thinking from God eyes because God is infinite. There was a minister in religious science, he wrote The Power of Decision, Raymond Charles Barker. And he reached into his wallet. God. Okay, he reached into his wallet. I didn't plan this. This is all spontaneous. And he pulled out all his money. And he just had this money and he just started kissing it. He says, I love it. I love this money. This money is just so good. And people just started to judge him and judge him and judge him. There you go. Reverend Ike did the same thing. And they judged him for that. And then he looked at him and he said, if you can't love money, then you don't love energy. And if you don't love energy, you don't understand how energy works. And if you don't understand how energy works, you're going to be living in lack. And if you're living in lack, you're going to be living in disease. If you're living in disease, you're living in non-connection to oneness. Because when we're connected to oneness, when we're connected to all that is, everything flows. And what is money? Money is just a representation of energy and energy free-flowing through us. Is that making sense? So the idea is we've got to start to embrace it. So as I lied there at 2:30 in the morning thinking about this idea of money, I said, I've got to now link money to a higher vision of how does that help me help people transform their lives. And then I started going through the adage where John says, build 200 reasons as to why money will help help people transform their lives. And so I started lying there till 4 a.m, reason after reason after reason of what is the benefit of having $10 million and how can I use that money to help others. And one of the biggest reasons is if I can example that to you and you can model that for yourselves and you create $10 million and you support where you get your spiritual nourishment from, we just collectively raise the planet. We're going to own the biggest place in the world where more people can come, and it's a party every Sunday to celebrate our personal transformation, our oneness with God, and we build a buzz and we change the planet Earth. Now think about that. It starts with one mind, but if you don't embrace it within your own mind and you think small, we're never going to have an impact on the world. And it's not that we're having an impact on the world. We're allowing the divine that we are to express as it should without limitation. Can you feel it? Do you feel the energy popping in here? Because I'm tingling. Whew. Feel that. Here. Whoosh. Front row. Get it. 2 words, persistent and consistent. That's what our daily spiritual practice must be. It must be persistent and it must be consistent. Because here's one thing. We know there's a law of creation. We call it the laws of cause and effect. We call it the law of reciprocity. We call it the law of giving and receiving. We call it the law of karma. We call it anything you want to call it. That law cannot be fooled. You hearing that? You cannot fool the law because the law is going to give you who you are. And what it gives you is you're going to be there thinking, and you're going to be there thinking, you're going to be doing affirmations, you're going to be praying, and you're going to say, it's not here yet, it's not here yet, it's not here yet. The question is, have you felt it? Have you linked it into your highest values? Have you taken the time, first off, to figure out what your highest values are? Because once you've linked it to your highest values and you've built on that and you've got that so that it is tied in, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it in a way that it's all of a sudden going to cause you to take a step, take an action in that direction. I've already taken an action. I've asked the universe to point me to what John told me to look at. Find stocks that are paying dividends for the next 3 years, that are in good quality companies. Something I've never done. I'm taking a step in that direction. I'm not going to do it. I'm taking a step in the direction to decide if that's the way to go, because divine wisdom will guide me. John is not my source. John is the infinite experience and power of God expressing uniquely as him, and he is the source for him. But he is a model for me to look at to see what is it about his way of being that might assist my way of looking at things, that I might assist you in looking at things, and that you can look at and find out what works for you. And then as you figure out what works for you, you create from that. You see, no one has your example but you. No one knows what's right for you but you. I don't know your answer. I know the answer for Lee Wolak, and sometimes I wonder where that answer is. Because I have as many points of decision yet to make as you have points of decision yet to make. Because my life is eternally, infinitely, ever expanding, as yours is eternally, infinitely, and ever expanding. We're always going to be that. As I read the book Proof of Heaven, which is a phenomenal book about a near-death experience of a neurological surgeon. He described what it was like in the afterlife. For 7 days, he was immersed in the afterlife. And he described it, and I was weeping because everything he described, I knew. At the core of my being, I don't know how I knew, and it became real for me. And what happened as I read it, all fear of dying disappeared because I realized that death is an illusion. This is an experience that we're having. This human body is just an experience. When we let it go, we continue. So we got nothing to fear, do we? I've talked to you. I've told you how to do it. I've told you the 2 biggest things that hold you back. It's not doing it, and it's not feeling it. I told you how that in order to feel it, you got to link it to your highest values. And then I said, there's no fear of death, is there? So what could hold us back? Our pattern of thought that we currently have. And so as we shift that pattern of thought, each moment of every day, we shift our life experience. One of the things that we offer here at Agape, and we're very proud of, is our education is second to none. And what we teach is a practical spirituality that's positive and that it empowers and supports you as you uncover your perfect, purpose-filled life. You see, that's where the work is done. This service is about feeling good. It's about to be inspired. I'm trying to lift something from within you to come forth so that you can reach out and you can create a whole new life for yourself. That's what I'm trying to do. But I can't do it for you. Gene can't do it for you. We can help you. We can guide you. We can support you. But you know what? Why would we even think that we could help a child of God? If you are the infinite, which you are, if you are individualized, whole, and perfect, as you are, why would I have the audacity to think that I could help you? I could support you. I can love you. I can teach. But I don't need to help you. You can do it all yourself. And until you do it all yourself, nothing changes. So as I look at you, what do I see? I see men that are handsome. I see women that are beautiful and radiant. I see the power of God individualized in all of its perfection. I know who you are. I look in the mirror, I look at you, and all I see is God. And all I see is good. And all I see is infinite. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.